welcome to the channel. I'm Angel, this is No Expense Spent, and if you're on my Patreon, you already know that because you've seen this before anybody else and haven't had to have any adverts, which is super. Link in the description box below for more information on that. If you're watching this on YouTube, well, hopefully you'll subscribe and you'll stick around to the end to see what I make. Loads more stuff on the channel on stuff I make. Cars one week, crafts the next. So what am I making today? Well, we're going high contrast. So I've got some black, but not this black, and I've got some neon fabric. But this is only part of the neon fabric. For the lining, I am using a repurposed John Lewis black linen machine embroidered table runner. It's in perfect condition, it's as new, it's ideal for recycling for this particular project, and it's not something that was going to be used otherwise, just because. You've got to remember when you're repurposing fabric, it is just fabric, so as long as it's still in good condition and clean, you're fine. For the outside, or the other side, because this is going to be reversible, I have this print. If you've seen the fabric haul video I did recently, thumbnail looks like this, and there's a link down below as well for that one. You'll know I got this from Minerva, from their dead stock section, so this is a fabric that is out of print now, but still brand new. And I love it. I don't know how to describe it to you. It's sort of like one of these 90s sort of weird hyper-colour things. It's great. I love it. It's going to work really, really well with the black that I've got going on here as well. For thread, I'm all out of black thread, and I can't get any in time for this video. So I had a look in my stash, and I've got some fluorescent threads. I've got green, yellow, and on the machine, which you might just be able to see there, I've got some hot pink. I'm just going to use these at random, as and when they fit in with the sewing process, and that will become part of the design. This is part of the range of clothing I'm doing, which I've dubbed Non Binary Finery, because it's not designed for any particular gender, it's just designed for people with bodies to wear. It's slow fashion, combination of brand new materials, reclaimed materials, dead stock fabric, and my focus is on stuff that is made to the highest standard I personally can make it, that will last a long time, is repairable and is sustainable. It does limit some of my design choices, obviously, which, yeah, there's going to be some piecing and patchwork on this one, but the trick is to make it look like you did that on purpose and not like you're being limited by what you've got available to you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get some sewing, because that's what you're here for. And let's get this thing together. It's a nice simple pattern, and it should be a fun one when it's finished. First bit to do is the hood stripe that goes on the black side of the garment. And I'm going to French seam this so that I get a nice display of these brightly coloured threads. It's not really a top stitch thread, this one, it's just a standard weight. And for those who may be curious, this is what I'm using. I picked this up in Sheffield when I used to live there a long time ago. I can't remember exactly when. And I only got a few of them for a UV reactive project I was doing at the time, which I have no photos or footage of because it was long before YouTube. Right, so I've already sewn this together, and you sew it as though your seams are on the outside of the garment, where normally you'd put them on the inside. Then work out which way you want to fold it. Now I want both of these stripes to go towards the inside of the central stripe. Sometimes you just roll them to the outside or whatever, but in this case I'm going to fold the fabric to the stitch line, fold it over again. That gives you one side of your sewing, and then I'll top stitch this edge here, and that will give me the other edge. But before you do that, you need to cut off your excess. Now, I call these French seams. I've seen other people call them different things. That's just how I was taught with this one. And I was also taught to cut your excess off here so you have a flatter seam, but I know some people just roll it straight over. and I don't like doing it that way because it can be very difficult to actually get a nice finish. Now, the nice thing about linen is it's very well behaved. So with some fabrics you might have to press it to do this, but with linen you don't tend to have to. You just fold and roll and put a pin in it. And I shall do that along the whole thing and then top stitch it and show you how that looks when I come back. The other thing that I did, because I want the variety in the stitch colours, is I turned the material over, so when this is sewn down you can see I've got the pink and I've got the yellow, and that will just change throughout the garment. I'm not going to be consistent with that on purpose, that's a design decision. It's been a little while. I encountered a technical difficulty. Sewing machine needles. I'd bought myself a little packet of Pony brand sewing machine needles. I've never really had a problem with Pony stuff before. I've used their knitting needles and whatever. It's been fine. For whatever reason, this particular packet, I just kept breaking the needles. Never known anything like it. Broke my last one doing the next stage of the sewing on this and found out I didn't have any spares. So I got myself some trusty old organ needles. I say old, they're brand new. This is what my machine came to me with, and I've always found those quite good. Obviously not sponsored or anything, just they're what work. They seem to suit this machine quite well. While I was off camera, I was doing some of the sewing on this that I didn't really see much point documenting because it's a lot of repeating, and I'm almost at the stage where I can put the inside and the outside together. Now, I'm not going to say outer and lining because both sides of this are the outer and the lining because it's reversible. Remember, we have the reversible zip, which I've still got to put in. I'm hoping that goes smoothly. And I next have to do this bright yellow stripe because on the hood I've got a bright yellow stripe down the middle, and we've got the yellow edging on the edge of the hood and on the front of the jacket as well. Now, trying to line up the print precisely so that this line here was exact, I couldn't do it. I just didn't have the space in the fabric and the proportions to do it. So, we've done our best, it's fine. On the back, because this panel's made out of two pieces, there's a visible seam on the back on this side, and I don't really want that seen. I want this to look a bit more seamless, a bit more deliberate. So that's where this comes in. I've already pressed over the hem allowance, and before I sew the hood to the body, I'm going to make sure this lines up centrally, and we'll top stitch this piece, and we'll also top stitch the hood. So as much as possible, this looks like a single piece running all the way down the back. Obviously there will be a seam right here where the hood joins the body, but aesthetically it should be one nice continuous seam. That will hide that seam there, and it will just look better. For the inside, I've got the shoulders sewn on. I've got the hood sewn onto the body because on this side the back panel is all in one piece, so I don't have that extra consideration to do. And I've got as much of the top stitching as I think I'm going to do. The trouble with the way these are put together, and because I've got to turn everything the right way out afterwards, is these side seams here, I can't really French seam these or fake French seam them, and I don't want the body to have sort of mismatched seams, so I'm having to think about my construction process to make sure that however I finish it looks deliberate. I'm in two minds about doing a top stitch around the collar seam because I could do that, but I feel like because the only top stitching is in the hood here, that it might look a bit strange doing it on some of the body and not all of it. So just keep it as a hood detail and don't do it elsewhere. I'll know better when I've done the printed side and got all of that in one piece, and then I can mock this all up and make my mind up in a bit. Right, there is a lot of like off-camera sewing with this one because, well, there just is. It's one of those. Here we go. We are ready for top stitching. I did have to unpick these very corners after I did it the first time because they weren't lining up as perfectly as I'd like, but they look great now. And I will run a top stitch seam from the hem here. We'll trim off this excess afterwards. And I'll just run straight over here, making sure on the inside that I catch this fabric here, which is the seam allowance for that central stripe. Catch that in towards the middle of the stripe. It'll also help give the hood some structure. This is a fairly lightweight cotton, but it is quite crisp, so it does have a decent amount of structure to it, and that combined with the linen for the other side, it should make it, you know, pretty sturdy. I'm not going to put an interlining in this one. I do with some of them. I think this one will get away without it. And I'm going to top stitch in the pink rather than the yellow that I've got. The yellow looks slightly off on this, so I'd rather go with an actual contrast than something that's almost matching. That turned out really nicely. I'm really happy with that. It lines up about as perfectly as I could manage, and we've run that pink stitching all the way to the top and all the way down to the bottom. So I can now trim this excess off, and we're ready to put the two halves together. Normally at this point it would be a very quick job of just sewing the two halves, a little bit of hand sewing, and I'd be done. But I've got a zip to put in as well, so I need to check what my order of construction is here to make sure that zip goes in nice and tidily. It is an open-ended zip, so that makes it slightly easier in a way, because I can sew it in two halves rather than having the bottom joined up. The trick is going to be making sure that these two bottom halves are lined up perfectly when I do this. And yeah, I'm not as confident with zips as I'd like to be, so we'll just have to see how this bit goes. We're sewn together, everything's pressed. There's one thing which was a little bit annoying, which became apparent when I pressed things. This yellow stripe down here is not completely opaque, and I probably should have lined it. Too late to do anything about it now. I am not about to unpick all of that. It is now just a feature of it. It's fine. It's fine. These things happen when you're sort of building garments like this. Sometimes this kind of thing happens. Doesn't affect the quality of it. It's just a thing I would change if I was making more than one of these. I'm really, really happy with how this stripe joins up now. The top stitching really does help pull it all together. That's great. And I've also got the zip attached. What I've done here is I've just done a stitch very, very close to the edge of the seam allowance. And, oh, there's a loose thread there. Oh no. Okay, don't play about with zips before you've finished all your edges. Anyway, that means that the zip is where I need it to be. It's even on the garment, and we're ready to sew the two shells of this together. Yeah, and when I do that, that should close this gap up a bit on the front with the zip as well. Although I don't mind it being on show as much as it is. It works with what this garment is. Okay. So fully functional. I now have to take the inside and the outside, which they both are, and you layer the two halves face to face. So this is the outer of this one, and this is obviously the outer of this one, and we sew around the edge, but we don't sew this side seam under the arm, because if you do that you can't then turn it out all the way. So you go round the armhole piece, and you go around the hood, down the front and down the hem as well, and then you can turn it all the right way out and let's just get into it. You're not here to get the theory on how these things are put together. You just want to see the finished product. And we're getting there. We're getting there. You'll have to excuse the coffee pot gurgling in the background. I'm going to sew these two pieces together. And this is fairly straightforward, this bit. I'll start with the zip edge, the front where the hood is. I'll do that seam first. I prefer to just sew right to the end of the fabric and then do that one. I get a nicer finish that way. And this doesn't take very long to do, happily. Now, I don't have a zipper foot for this machine. I would like one. There's a lot of things I'd like for this machine. I just haven't got around to it yet. I just have to be careful as I go that I don't sew through the teeth. That's the first difficult part done, and this linen for the black side is quite mobile, and in the process of me putting everything together it has stretched out ever so slightly. It sometimes happens with fabrics. You sometimes get a slight issue where you then find yourself having to ease things. So I've just got to be very careful so I can squash this black fabric down as I sew without putting tucks in it. Again, there's special feet to help you do this, but I don't have them. Now I've got to be careful here because the zip starts just here. So once I climb up onto those teeth, I've got to make sure the needle doesn't get smashed into them. There we go. When you've got a zipper foot, they have a bit of a step in them, so they actually ride on the teeth and you can get a much cleaner edge. Right, the other challenge is I've got the zip pull in here and I need to get that past the zipper foot. So I've got the needle down, pop that one out, give my hands some space. And if I'm really lucky, I can wiggle this past. There we go. So now the zipper pull is up here, and that's not going to be a problem for me. Again, I've just got to be careful at the bottom because we've got the big bulk of the zip there. This is going to be a little bit tricky. There's always a workaround. That's our long seam done around the front. I'll show you how this looks when I turn it the other way out, but I've got to finish sewing all of these seams first. It's our final seam before we turn this out. It's gone nice and smoothly. There we go. Before I turn this out, I have a couple of little jobs to do. I need to clip the corners here, the 90-degree ones at the front, and I need to clip the armhole as well, just so that lays nice and flat when it's pressed. Yeah, I'll bring you back in just a moment. I'm going to go through all of this, and then we'll see what we look like. Before I press this, now that I've got it all turned out and tested the zip, we're all good. I've pulled some of the interior to the outside through one of the unfinished side seams because I need to catch the two halves of the hood at the collar so that you don't end up with the hood just kind of ballooning out on itself. The way I do that is I pull both pieces out, pin it, turn it all the right way out again to make sure nothing's twisted, pull it inside out, and now we quickly sew this seam. It doesn't need very much, it's just on the seam allowance and it's a little bit fiddly, but it makes quite a big difference to the fit. That's all we do. Put that back through there, and that just means that on here this piece doesn't just balloon out, and the same on the outside. I need to press all of this. It's coming together very nicely, and I am going to top stitch the edges. I think it's just going to give a slightly nicer finish than if I just press it, and we'll carry on this theme of the different coloured fluorescent threads to do that, which I think will be quite fun. It's done, and it looks great. Do a proper reveal in just a minute. The zip didn't give me any problems at all, and of course now all the raw edges are all on the inside of the garment. They're not catching on the zip like they were earlier. I've done all the top stitching around the hem, the armholes, all around the front, and the back looks great. This fabric is absolutely amazing, it really is. I'm going to give it one last check over, make sure I've caught any loose threads so that we're all sorted there, and then I'll show you what it actually looks like on. The other thing I just wanted to point out is I now have labels. So all of my clothing that I do has proper little professional fabric labels on them. If you're interested in buying any of these clothes that I make, or some of the other bits and pieces that you've seen here on the channel, do check out my website. I've got a shop there and there's all sorts of things. Free postage in the UK, international postage is a little bit trickier. Squarespace is a bit odd with how it's doing that at the moment for me, so I can ship internationally, but you're going to have to contact me so I can work out how to do that for you. Anyway, enough prattling on, let's have a look at this on a person and you'll get to see the finished result. Please do go and look on my website. I said that really strangely.